เขาจะได้อะไรถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวันเขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลยไม่ได้รวยขึ้นไม่ได้ออกทีวีไม่มีใครรู้จักไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้นเพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
Good morning and welcome everyone. I am so excited to finally be back for another week of The Rock Live. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to see everyone's faces in the comments. Richard, he's getting involved this morning nice and early, which is good to see him already up and out of bed, hopefully. Michelle Lee's in there. Louisa is struggling with reception already. Unfortunately, they're out at Derby, which is exciting. Mr. French, he's on board. And I just want to say hello to everyone. Great to see you. Let me know if you are watching and who you are watching with. And while you are saying who you are watching with, think also who can you invite along to watch today. It's very easy service to share. So I encourage you all to do that. Get around it with your mates and all that sort of stuff. It's great to get involved. One great thing that we've got going on this week is our Legend of the Week. All right, and it is none other this week than the wonderful Marlise Streifland. What a great last name. She's a great person. She has a great husband, I heard. She's involved with a lot of things at the church. She's part of our core team for our youth ministry, which is great, but she's also started producing on Sundays, which is a big role, a very stressful role. She gets everyone in line, make sure they're there on time, and make sure everyone knows what they're doing on a Sunday morning, which is great. So thank you so much, Marlise, for all the work you do. We appreciate you as a person. I know I do anyway, so, you know. But with her big production role, she's got a big event coming up on December 20th at 6 p.m. and that is our Christmas service, which I am so excited for. This is one of the biggest of the year. This is going to be huge. It's going to pop off. They've even backed it up tonight so we can just really plan for it all day long. It's going to be a big one. Think about who you can invite though. Christmas is such a wonderful time to invite people. And it's such a wonderful time for people who have never been involved with the church before, or maybe you've watched online every week and you're wondering when you can come to church. This is a perfect service for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of my highlights of the year. And people are just very open and honest about what Christmas is, and they're more open and wanting to come along. So I encourage everyone to think about who you can invite. Already be praying about that, and yeah, that'll be great. So December 20th, put it in your diary, 6 p.m. Don't come here in the morning because there won't be many people here. All right, thank you. another great thing we got going on. January 18th till the 21st is, okay, I said, well, technically this is a new year, so next year this will be my favourite event of the year because December 20th is my favourite event of this year. We've got youth camp coming up. I am even more excited about that. That youth camp is my little baby now. That is January 18th to the 21st. I encourage all of you guys to sign up. We got that down in the comments where you can sign up. I really look forward to it. I can't wait every year. It is literally life-changing, all for the cheap price of $136. All your meals, all your food, and yeah, it can literally change your life. But we got a little AV that we're just going to watch about youth camp to really pump you guys up for that. Awesome. That's just a little sneak peek into some of the shenanigans we get up to over at youth camp. So that is for grades 7 to 12. Again, January 18th to 21. I encourage all of you parents to sign your kids up. Sign them up today. It will honestly be life-changing. I've heard of kids coming back and wanting to do the dishes and do their chores. But not only that, they're just on fire for God. And it's just a great time for us to be able to just really preach into their life and help them with the transition that they're about to go through into high school and into college. But just a great time also, $136, and you get rid of your kids for 3 days. Like, it's a win-win for everyone, let's be honest. So I encourage you guys, click on the link, sign them up, get about it, encourage other parents. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all there. So that's over on our website, which you'll find lots of stuff on. And not only will you find our youth camp regos on that, you will find our prayer requests. So they're a big thing. They're awesome. You can fill them out today. But also that website, I'm pretty sure it's live 7 days of the week. So it's not only a Sunday tool, just like we're not only just Christians on Sunday, that website can be used for more than just Sunday. So if you have anything going on throughout the week, I encourage you guys to pop on over to the website and fill out a prayer request so we can have our team praying for you, rallying behind you, getting behind you, and just big ups and you. It's a great tool. We also have our giving on there, which is great. I look forward to giving every week. It's just another great thing that we get to do. And yeah, that's fun. Christmas lights updates. Big one for you guys, right? We've hit it. We've done it. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. We've done it. We've reached our goal. So now it is all onto Marika to make this place pop. If you don't know what that is, over the December period, we're going to make this place light up like it is the 4th of July. It's going to be the place to be on the Northwest Coast to see Christmas lights. And we fundraised over $5,000 just to make that vision happen. So I'm very excited about that. One more thing that I'm excited about a lot of. I get excited pretty easily, but this thing is very good to be excited about. Our conversation today is going to be amazing. It's based around the Bible story of the Good Samaritan, and there is some good people in this conversation. Some great people, I might say. So we got the Jenna Hesp. She's fabulous, right? She's not bad. She married Dylan, so she's got a bit of smarts about her. We got Louisa. She's our pastor. I love Louisa. But then we got Mr. Jawline himself, Mr. Jonathan O'Neill. He's a fantastic man all the way from Launceston. I encourage you guys, listen, get involved, comment down below who you're excited to see, and I will see you guys at the end. Thank you.
The Miracle of Mercy, the Good Samaritan. This is Jesus, who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. You see, when Jesus was on earth, he wanted everyone to know what God thought about things. So he took every opportunity to teach people about God's heart. One day, a religious expert stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: "Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?" What does the law say? The man answered, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." Right.
All right.
Do this and you will live.
Wait.
The man then asked, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits.
Ah!
They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along.
Hey.
But when he saw the man lying there,
Yuck.
he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by.
La 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 la. Wow.
Another man who worked in the temple, who was called a Levite, walked over and looked at him lying there.
Please help. Huh?
But he also passed by on the other side. Then a Samaritan came along. Samaritans were hated by Jews. They were seen as lesser people, and Jews would not interact with them. But when the Samaritan saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him.
One room, please.
The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? The man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Yes, now go and do the same."
Good morning, church. We're excited. We're continuing on with our series, Stop Pretending and Get Real with Yourself. So we've got 2 amazing guests this morning. We have Jenna Hesp. You're a local. Aren't you? You come back, went away and studied, and are now practicing in a law firm, fully qualified. And are you enjoying that? Or
Yeah, I am enjoying that. So I think I just clicked over 2 years, actually. So
really?
yeah, so it was just like a week ago or something. So
That's so cool.
That
yeah,
time's
but I'm
gone
enjoying
quick.
it. It has gone very quickly.
Oh,
So
I would have said 6 months. Okay, and we have John O'Neill from Launceston.
All the way from Lonnie.
All the way from
It's
there.
a long way.
Yeah, and so what's your role? What do you...
Yeah, so I work at Tail Race. So
Yeah.
the related church to this place, I suppose.
Yeah,
Best mates. So I'm the associate pastor there.
yeah.
It's good fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you're married?
Yeah, I'm married to a lovely wife, Erica. She's a speech pathologist.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome. That's cool. Well,
Absolutely.
welcome along today. We're going to talk about today how to be mature. So it's kind of our, grow up. I don't know if your parents said that to you, but, when you're doing a tantrum or
Yep.
something, just grow up, act mature. But really, if there was one goal of, the Christian life, it's actually to love well. And if we'd sum it all up, how can we love well? And that's just not a theory. It's really it's a practice and it's skills that we learn. So we're going to look at the story of the Good Samaritan today and just see what we can draw out of the story. So how about we go to Luke 10, and I'm going to kick us off by... So Jesus is responding to this guy who's asking him some questions, and I'm going to kick off in verse 29. And it says, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbour?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead."
Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion.
He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense."
Wow.
There we go.
Interesting story. Just as we were reading this, I've actually been to Israel, and I've read this story often as a kid. But you kind of think that the journey from Jerusalem to Jericho is just like down the road, but it's actually a really long
It's like
walk.
20 miles or something, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And it's actually quite a descent as well because you're going closer.
And
to
it was known for like all the robbers along it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like called the Blood Way or something like this, I think. The Blood
right.
Path or something.
So, you know.
Do you want to go there?
So anyway, I think from this story we can learn some things how to love well. And
Yeah.
for me, there's kind of like 3 threads that I think we'll focus on today. And the first one is, like compassion does have limits, and then
very true.
expectations, and then where does conflict end up in our relationships. So maybe we'll just look at the first one about conflict and limits. And so not conflict and limits, compassion and limits. Yeah. You must have limits in your conflict for sure. But compassion, sometimes we just think we've got to be a Mother Teresa and, have no limits, even though she did as well. And so how do you balance compassion and limits, Jenna? How do you see that?
Yeah. Well, I think for me probably the biggest thing is actually getting probably a better understanding of what my limits actually even are.
Yep.
I feel like that's something I'm definitely trying to figure out at the moment. Even this week, I had said yes to things happening a particular way and then realised that's probably wasn't actually a great time of day to do that for me because it's just not good timing. It means I'm not at my best and I can't give the other person the energy that they need and things like that. So for me, that's a big one of coming to understand more clearly probably what my limits are.
How do you work out where they are though?
If I do something and then it's I shouldn't have done that.
So experience, you reckon?
Yeah.
Learning.
Experience.
Retrospect.
Retrospect. Yeah. So I think that's a big part. So I'm still trying to figure some of that stuff out. But I think for me as well is just not realising that work for me takes up a lot of mental energy and a lot of my energy really. And so it means I can't necessarily always say yes to lots of other things. So I guess being limited in the things that I say yes to, so that when I do say yes to something, I can really, give that
a full yes, 100% yes.
rather than it then being just a bit half-hearted.
That makes sense.
Do you feel like you got something to add to that?
I think limits is tricky because we have to admit that I can't do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's a really important thing. I think back to my wife and I, we moved to Adelaide and we went to a great church whilst we were there. But during that season, I probably didn't understand my own limits very well, and I probably didn't understand or I wasn't secure in myself enough to be able to exert boundaries really healthily. And so I sort of ended up doing everything at church. Do you know what I mean? So I'd work Monday to Friday. I'd be away Monday to Friday, I should say, travelling with work. And then I'd come home. I'd see Eric for 20 minutes. And then I'd be off down the road to church. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd be there till 1 a.m. packing up Friday night type thing. And then Saturday you might have a couple of hours off and then you got to go do something. And Sunday there's 3 services. And then, do you know what I mean? So it's just there's this constant sort of thing of, don't you love church enough, or don't you love God enough, or don't you, not that they were explicitly asking that of me, and they weren't trying to manipulate me, it's just my own immaturity meant that I didn't put down good boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so do you think that's sort of like a filter which you hear the requests through?
For me, in my personality type, I think everyone's different.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess that's that self-awareness that you were talking about, Jen. the way I sort of wired and the way that God's created me, I sort of hear it through that. Like, is it not more important? Is this not the end goal? Is this not what we're supposed to be spending our energy on? But there's lots of great things in life to spend energy on.
Yeah.
know what I mean?
And to love well is actually love yourself well, and also those close to you as well. So you can love the church well, but to love Erica and give her,
That's right.
you're a husband, so give her some quality time, not just the leftovers. And
Yeah, that's right. And if I'm not healthy, I don't love well.
yeah.
And I suppose as a pastor, you'd say that all the time, wouldn't you?
Yep, in myself, but also in others. But that's why I love this story. Here we have this guy who, stops, kneels down, cleans the wounds, shares his donkey, like his Ferrari or whatever, his modern transport, not afraid to put this bleeding man on his donkey. But then he takes him to an inn and actually pays somebody else to do part of the process. So he doesn't do it all.
Yeah.
So,
He doesn't try to be the surgeon. He doesn't try to be the... Do you know what I mean? That's great.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
But I know for me, often when I'm not aware of my limits, I'm a bit like the others in this story. I can't see people. I can't see my family. I can't see, I'm in a hurry. And so do you find that happening that... Because in this story, like the Levite and the priest, actually, it's almost they crossed to the other side. They didn't have the capacity to be compassionate.
I don't know if I think it was their busyness that stopped them from seeing. I think it was their prejudice. I think it was their fear. What I mean by that, so my mother and I, so my mum's Sharon, she's the pastor at Tarrace.
Yeah.
And we've been listening to, one of the people we've been listening to lately is Danielle Strickland, who's just amazing. One of the things that she speaks about is how the opposite of love is actually fear, and how when we fear, we're both oppressed. So ourselves, we feel oppressed by others, but then we also in turn oppress others.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in this story of this man, the fact they simply just say man and he's talking to a Jewish crowd means it's probably a Jew. So there's this Jew who's been beaten up, who's been left by the side of the road, and then a priest and a Levite, so someone who works in the temple, comes past. And they would have hated. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, it was the Samaritan that they would have hated. And so when we oppress others, or when we feel fearful, we start to oppress other people. And so in our own world, what that might look like is that someone might be different to us, or someone might be scary to us, or something like that.
Yep.
And so then we don't extend that love. We don't see them any longer. We see our business and we see our hurry, and so we might skirt by on the other side of the road. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's actually love that enables us to see them. It's love that enables us to stop and tend to them. But it's not fear drives all of that out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't articulate that very well. I sort of had like a little moment in there. But does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think there's different things that stop us, and it's not just one thing, is it? So it can really be. What I'm hearing you saying is that it can really be when we're fearful of what that relationship could look like, or if I give compassion because of who they are, or
if
something.
I feel threatened by them, or if they're just so different that I don't understand them.
Yeah.
Or if they seem scary because they speak a different way or dress a different way. Or
And I think sometimes we think if we're compassionate, we're agreeing with them as well. That probably slips into it as well.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to agree with somebody to love somebody and show compassion.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So it kind of gets bunked in the same thing, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you think that we get busy, Jenna, and rush past people, or do you think it's more like the kind of thing that we're fearful of people?
I can't think it can be both.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's also like our our self-centeredness, or our like lost in our own world kind of thing, that we like stop noticing other people because they're so consumed of what's going on. For us, like if you're going through something difficult or whatever, that you might stop seeing people around you, or like you might fear them, or you might just want to avoid other people, and you might just pop things in the no, that's too hard basket. So then I wondered with them whether it was also part of that they were just so maybe it was that fear thing, and then they just wanted to avoid them because they didn't want to have to deal with that, or they were just lost in their own world of what they had to do and what they had to achieve for that day, that they just didn't have that time to give to someone else, or just Yeah, I know. Sometimes when I see people who are sad, or in a bad mood, or like an Eeyore,
situation. You're just like, oh, I don't know if I got time to like probe and like to be there because I've got to be somewhere and I've got this next thing happening and I'm just very aware or more aware lately that I don't have a lot of margin often in my life. And so if you're doing back-to-back appointments and commitments, that means that if somebody comes along, you don't have that 5 or 10 minutes to go, hey, how you doing? Hey, I noticed you're sad. Are you okay? Sort of to ask that question. So interesting to think about.
Very good. So how do you protect that margin?
Well, I think it comes out to scheduling your calendar as well. So, and I'm a bookworm. I love books, but I really hate books that the writing is there's no, the margins aren't very big because I like to write all around them. And I often think about that. Like the best books are when there's a big gap at the bottom, gaps on the side, and it's not all too close together. And I know even when you do assignments, you have to write, one half spacing so the marker can write in between. And for me, that's a constant reminder in my life. I need to have gaps. Or like music, it's the pauses that make the music beautiful. And I think that's the moments to be interrupted. So am I interruptible? Probably. That's what I think about.
That's good.
It is a hard one. I feel like it's hard because like the world is very focused on you have to do things all the time, or like always have to be achieving something to like create that space. So it's like, no, it's okay to do less so that you can actually be more present for the people that are around you and be interruptible and have those moments of being able to help people if they need it rather than just going, no, don't have time for that.
Yeah. I mean, I was even conscious how I introduced you guys. How did I introduce you? What do? You are a lawyer. That's where we went. And I think we just so automatically go to what we do and validate that, and that's where our worth comes from. So I think it's even going back to even thinking how we structure sometimes the way we meet people, because maybe then we'd think differently. So I don't know quite how to do that. I'm working through that, but I'm finding myself being kind of commentating on, what are you doing, Louisa? That's really, you're talking about what people do instead of who they are, and how can you transition your conversations to value people more. So.
That's good.
So we'll jump ahead and think about expectations. In this story, you would expect the priest to do the right thing. You would even expect the Levite, because they were like the people were set apart to do the right thing. But you wouldn't expect the Samaritan to actually extend compassion. So when you look at expectations, how's that worked in your life? Or, what do you hear in this, Jenna?
Sorry, can you clarify?
Like when you think about expectations, do you feel like that you live with expectations on other people or expectations on yourself, or like how does that roll out in your life?
Yeah, I'd say I have a lot of expectations, and probably often very unrealistic or very high expectations of both other people and myself, which then can create like a lot of challenges. Probably it's most noticeable probably in in my marriage with Dylan, that if I have all these unrealistic expectations of how I want him to spend his time, or how I expect us to do things or what things look like, then it can create a lot of issues. Or I've found that often, and this is something I've been trying to get better at, is that there's always been a lot of probably unspoken expectations that I have, that I'm getting better at trying to communicate. But it's not always easy, because you think everyone thinks the same way as you, and they know what's going on in your head, whereas no, they don't.
Well, that's what I've found really helpful about their EHS course that we've been doing. It actually talks about there's 4 things, not just because I think I've spoken aloud, but they talk about unrealistic expectations, unspoken expectations, one more, unconscious ones, that you're not even aware of them. So you've got this, and then unagreed upon. And even if we've spoken them aloud and, you know, we've told somebody what we're expecting, it doesn't actually mean just because I said it aloud that they've said, yes, I'm going to participate in that. So have you had some experience with that?
I think we all have. One of the things I love about Jesus and one of the things I love about our Christian faith is that he invites us to just speak plainly and simply. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so good. Like, and the more mature we are, I think the plainer and more simple that we speak. Especially in our relationships with one another. We don't try to play those games where there's inferred things that we're trying to say, but we don't quite want to say it. Or there's not that ambiguity, or there's not that passive aggression or anything like that. It's just we're able to articulate where our boundaries are and what our expectations are. I think it's really cool. But it's difficult, I suppose, to live that way. But when we do, it's far more freeing.
Yeah.
Don't you
And
think?
I'm just at the moment really challenging my relationship with John, my husband, because often I go, I'm feeling lonely, or you haven't been around, and I would say it in the negative.
Yeah.
And to actually go, I need you to spend more time with me, or I'm feeling lonely. How could we make some time tonight without you being on your computer all evening? But it's so easy to say an expectation in the negative, you know, like, and not to actually. For me, it's a lot of work to actually go, no, what do I actually need, and how can I say that in a positive and almost like an invitation? And I think somebody's going to respond to it in the positive much more than when we go, you don't do this, or you haven't spent enough time with me this week. Or, so it's really undoing a lot of language for me to speak it out, but also to realise that.
Even if you hadn't have spoken that out, like lots of people communicate through, you know, that passive aggression. They do something. Do you know what I mean? They light the fire, so then there's the smoke. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's all that drama, all that energy, all that time of just trying to communicate that, oh, hey, John, I'd like to see you a little bit more. Let's hang out some more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the difference in the quality of your life, those two different ways, it's just so drastic.
Yeah.
I want to live more like what you're saying.
And you know what? It paid off this week because you know he said he had a full day and he was just driving past because works between Devonport and Burnie, and he just dropped in some flowers and just like, I just make 5 minutes just to have a coffee with you, show that I remembered you. And so I thought, wow, that's just so much better when we ask for what we need. Doesn't mean you get what you need, but it clears the muddy waters, doesn't it? It makes it simple.
Speaking plain and simple.
Yeah.
Do you yes mean yes and you no mean no?
Because I remember somebody saying to me many years ago, oh, you're better off to live without expectations and you're not disappointed. But I'm just like, I don't want to live that way. But I think I could hear what she was saying because sometimes our expectations are internal and it's actually about voicing them and saying them aloud.
Living that way would just be so devoid of hope
Yeah.
and excitement.
Yep.
But I can understand what you're saying because you don't want to be let down. Yeah. There you go.
But probably in society we do, you know, live with a lot of hopelessness, don't we? And it's probably and it probably is related to that expectation people don't want to expect or haven't learned how to clearly articulate their expectations. So
But I think as well, like when you do speak like plainly and you do like actually communicate things, it saves you like so much. It stops you from being angry or like stops you from like all this emotional turmoil going on inside of you, because otherwise I know for me there's been times where it's like you kind of want, well, it's that passive aggression, like you're wanting to kind of communicate your expectations but you're not going to necessarily talk about it, so you'll just be like really grumpy or like just really like angry and things, where if you just speak plainly about things, like it saves all that drama and you can just have a conversation with it and hopefully then get to an agreed expectation, I guess.
But do you think there's also more satisfaction in it? You don't actually feel like you've manipulated it and that the person's been freely able to give.
Yes.
So it actually is, it's a better experience in the end, or a better outcome, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Because I know when I've done it the other way, it's kind of, you might get what you want, but it comes with a level of guilt and you're like, well, it's not really the way I wanted to get my way. Well, it's not really my way, but, you know, get what I wanted. So, yeah.
I agree. And I think that's what love is though as well, isn't it? Because otherwise we miss out. Do you know what I mean? If there's those unmet expectations, essentially there's something that we're not quite receiving that we want to do. There's a need that's not yet met. Do you know what I mean? So in some ways we feel oppressed, and so then like what you're talking about, we manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We oppress them sort of
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
so that we can get what we want.
Yeah.
But God's so cool. He invites us to a different way of life. I just love that.
Yeah.
So love and well is actually that we would speak out those expectations.
Yeah, it's a big,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that we would just keep it simple, maybe. Keep it simple, keep it clear,
Yeah.
and actually make sure it's agreed upon, so that we don't set ourselves up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah. So a third part of the story is there was some conflict happening in the story. The priest and the Levite, they actually turned away. There's probably a history of conflict there. So just that influenced what happened that day. So how do you see conflict, and is there what's conflict look like in your life? Or don't you have any? Are you one of those blessed few?
No, I've got lots of conflict in my life.
Yeah.
No, so I think conflict's really healthy, and I think it's something that we need to be able to do really well. I think it's one of the hallmarks of maturity, but I don't think it's easy at all.
No.
And so I think it's something that comes with practice, and it comes with training, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It comes with maturity. And I think what we just spoke about, speaking plainly and simply, is a big part of it. But I just think it's so important that we learn to do really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jen?
What was the question again?
Oh,
Sorry.
about conflict, or have you struggled with conflict, or do you find it challenging? Or do you embrace
definitely.
it?
I'd say I definitely find conflict very challenging to do. I guess it's probably not something that I necessarily grew up doing. So it probably wasn't really until I got married and Dylan had very different views onto how we do conflict, and we deal with things, and we chat about things. And it's still at times challenging for me. I see the benefits of it. It's so much better because then you get, say there's a conflict, and you get to a point where you reach some form of resolution, or you feel like you both say Dylan understands me and I understand him, so you get to that level of understanding, and then you can kind of move on, and it feels like it's been dealt with. But I'd say probably still at this stage it's very much Dylan who has to do all the hard work in making that happen, because I don't know, it's still an area of growth, I guess, for me, but it's definitely worthwhile pushing through, even though it is challenging.
So what about you? What skills do you say it's healthy and to embrace it, Jono? So
I think coming back to a point that you made right back at the start, when we grow in our awareness of ourselves, when we start to understand ourselves out a little bit more, and when we have a language for understanding others, I think that really helps with our conflict and our ability to do it, because rather than just seeing them as an enemy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's far easier to love them if I understand them. It's far easier to understand how they arrived at that decision or why they walked in this way and they're acting like that. Like an example would be, so we've been using the Enneagram a lot lately. It's a tool, it's a personality type tool, I suppose. Nothing's perfect, but for me, I found it's given some great language. And so Erica and I did it, and she came out as a type 1, which is this constant improver type thing. But something that I was always so frustrated with her for, which would lead to so much fighting and conflict, was that she's constantly got this this attitude or this behaviour of irritation or frustration that she just walks and strops around in. And I'll be like, what's wrong with you? Just sort it out. Just fix it. Get over it type thing. She's like, nothing's wrong. Stop being so sensitive, Jono. All this sort of stuff. It was only after we sort of had this language around the Enneagram that I could understand that it's just part of her makeup, part of her, there's just this, often there's this irritation under her skin, and she's not even really very self-aware of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So once I could come to understand that, when she's walking around like that, I've now got a language, and I can say, hey, Erica, guess what? And it's just a totally different tone to being able to articulate some of those points of tension in our relationship. And so as I've grown in my own understanding and my understanding of her, I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
so language is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, language and understanding and
awareness. Sometimes just having the words. I know I'm learning some stuff, John and me, this year, and just saying, that that I'm being contemptuous or I'm being critical or I've ignored you were, a bid for connection. So just having those things that we've sort of got some language around actually helped keep the conflict as the ball between us instead of, attacking the
personal
person.
attack.
Yeah.
And I think that language is so critical, especially early on when we're learning how to enter into conflict.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like for instance, in the workplace, sometimes it can be really tricky because there's a lot of different power dynamics at play, or that sort of thing. So at our workforce, like one of the things that we've spoken about in the past is having these linking sentences, because often the hardest part about conflict is the entry point.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's jumping off the diving board into the pool.
Yep.
And so some linking sentences like, hey Dylan, hey Jenna, can I just grab you for a minute because I just need to talk to you about something? Or do you mind if I go that last 10% in our relationship and talk about something at the moment?
Yeah.
Or Louise, do you mind if I just grab you for 5 minutes and talk to you about something that irritated me today? Do you know what I mean? And then it's getting that buy-in, and then it's so much easier to enter into conflict that way because then you're talking about the issue rather than about the person.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of that language and some of those tools I think can be really helpful, especially at the start.
Yeah. Well, I've been learning, they call it soft startups.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
The same thing.
and it's the same thing. And they say the first 3 minutes of a conversation determines the end.
Yeah.
So, and that's like actually learning some of those that language, how to do that soft starter, how to, just make the person feel like they've got a choice in it to enter in the conversation and you're not just loading a ton of bricks on them.
Yeah, I think it's worth practicing. So like Eric and I do conflict all the time, so I don't know if we need to do any practice on that one. No, we've got a great relationship. I'm just doing. But like an example of how we practice it would be at youth group every Friday night. Afterwards, we always have a debrief meeting, and part of that's to train for that self-growth, that giving feedback to one another, receiving a feedback. But sometimes, like I'll intentionally just mine for conflict, if that makes sense, just to teach people how to react or that sort of thing. And so I'm hoping to train our young leaders in giving them exposure to that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's healthy for us to go home or to our workplaces and start to practice some of these things. It's sort of like, I heard this conversation about conflict the other day. I think it'd be healthy if we just practice some entry points into it. Do you know what I mean? So much better than throwing a chair at them to get their attention.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
What about you, Jenna? Is there some skills or something that you'd say about conflict?
Yeah, well, I was actually listening to a podcast recently from Andy Stanley on on conflict, and a great thing he kind of pointed out is the biggest thing that in conflict and having those conversations that everyone wants is everyone just wants to be heard and to be understood. And for me, that's probably actually been really a helpful thing, because when I think of myself in those moments of having working through conflict with Dylan, that's all I want from him at the end of the day is for him to just listen to me and feel heard and understood. So I guess for me now going into that, I'm trying to keep that as my focus point as well, be okay, it's really important that I listen and that I really work hard to listen and try and understand where Dylan's coming from or whatever's happened, that to focus on trying to understand him rather than just jumping in all the time and trying to cut him off and say no, you're wrong, or this is what I think, and different things
That's great.
like that. So I feel I feel I haven't, that's been a new learning, so I haven't got to practice with that too much. But I think something interesting that I heard as well was that everyone always thinks that everything makes sense to them. So if you do something or if you say something, it makes sense to you, but that doesn't necessarily that it makes sense to someone else. But I guess understanding that, say if Dylan does something, that what his actions make sense to him, so he doesn't necessarily see that there's a problem even if I think there is. So it's to try and, listen to try and get that understanding of what was going on and things like that.
That's so good.
Yeah, something that I've been learning about conflict is that I always used to think one person was right and one person was wrong, but actually allow that both people are right. Because both of your perspectives are right from your point of view.
Yeah.
And so, if you were to describe that mug, you'd probably have a different picture or what's on the table than Jenna, and it's actually just two different perspectives. And I would get a bit argumentative, but, that's not exactly what I said, but it is what the other person heard, because communication is more than the exact words, and to allow the other person to say, this is from my perspective, this is how it is, and that's totally right, because from their perspective, that's their experience.
Yeah.
And I love pictures and metaphors, and I heard it said like this: when you're fighting with somebody, it's like your two islands, and all the water gets murky between yous, but what you need is, like, you know, if you're fighting with Dylan, you actually need to get off your island, go and hop on his island, do a lap, and actually see it from his perspective.
Yeah.
And if he's willing to actually get off his island, go on to yours and go, oh, that's what it looks like from your perspective. And so I actually go, I accept really that from your perspective, that's how it is for you, and which is the understanding thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's been powerful, because when you want to be right in the conflict, when there's actually two rights, and so that doesn't seem to add up, you know. Like,
That's great. So do you think that our goal shouldn't necessarily to be right in conflict, but rather it's about that reconciliation, I suppose?
Yeah.
It's about finding that common ground rather than asserting my point over you.
Well,
Yep,
if the
definitely.
goal of conflict is to be right, you're going to slaughter someone, I reckon.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
But if the goal is to be understood and to understand, I think you can get there.
Wow.
So
We should always enter into a conflict with seeking to understand first.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would change it.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
that's coming back to what you were talking about before, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
yeah,
Very true.
yeah.
Very true.
So it's been an interesting conversation. So I've really enjoyed it. So you know, we've been thinking about the Good Samaritan, and I mean, really, we see that love affected his life. It actually produced something, but he did have limits. And he didn't let conflict stop him from loving, which in some ways he was, you know, he understood the robbers, you know, the guy who was laying on the ground. His need was to have his wounds healed up, you know. It wasn't a need to heal the racial conflict, and he just administered to what the guy needed at that moment. So just in closing, you know, with relationships, how to love well, would you have one sort of tip or, you know, something that you want to just say to our audience today?
Would you like to go first, Jen?
No. I need more time to think.
All right. I think we've all hit on it a few times, and it's that seeking to understand both ourselves and the people that we're interacting and engaging with. And I think love demands that we try grow in that. Love demands that I try to see you clearer, and then I try to see you clearer, and then I try to see myself clearer. Because as I do so and as I understand more, I can then be more loving. I can be more compassionate. I know where the limits and the expectations are, rather than I'm just fumbling around in the dark.
Yeah,
I think
that's so
seeking
good.
to grow is just so huge.
Yeah.
Your turn, Jen.
I don't know really what else to add to that. Like, I feel like that's probably it. Like to try and understand yourself better, so you can know what your limits are, so that you do have that room to love people well, and to always seek to like understand other people, and I guess like to not like be judgmental or jump to conclusions as to like someone else or why they might be in a particular situation, but just look at how you can love in that moment, rather than like making up your mind as to what you think is going on for someone else, to actually seek to understand them.
Great wisdom.
What about you?
Great wisdom. I am just continue that love isn't automatic, that love is learnt. And so you've got to keep learning. So it's never that I've arrived, okay, I learnt I've actually learnt some great stuff today, but tomorrow what else can I learn about loving? And what can I learn about the skills, but what can I learn about the other person, which is the understand thing, and what can I learn about myself? Because it's twofold, isn't it? Because I think if you're only thinking about understanding the other person, you'll miss half of the equation. So
Love's hard.
Yeah, love's hard and fun and rewarding.
But it's part of that too. It's a choice, isn't it? Like it's like that. You have to choose to love. It doesn't just automatically.
No, love
doesn't
automatic.
just automatically happen. You have to make that decision.
Yeah, I love in the Passion Translation how it says in 1 Corinthians 13, love is learnt. And for me, that's just encouragement. And I hope you've been encouraged today and spurred on to learn some skills about loving yourself, loving others, and understanding those in your world so that you can live with real expectations and hope and enjoy life. We'll see you next time.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Yeah. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No, no, no. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No, 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 no. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Awesome. That was absolutely huge. That was a great conversation. I know I personally learned a lot. And there were so many good little snippets, so many good little one-liners in there. I love one thing that Jono said. He said, it's far easier to love when you understand the person. That is so true. Another thing that Louisa said at the end, that we learn how to love. You know, love is learnt. You know, it's not something we're born with. We learn how to love. There's so many great things. I also love, I love a lot of this message. I loved how they talked about how conversations and stuff can be simple. We don't need to use big words. We don't need to dramatize it, but just keep it simple. And that's is mature to keep things simple. I love that. I want to encourage you guys. What can you learn from this week? How can you apply it to your life? But not only that, think about who you need to have a mature conversation with, who you need to go up to and just speak to about real life things that are going on. So I encourage you guys to do that. I'm going to pray for us. So, dear God, thank you that we could have that amazing message, God. We thank you for the three of them giving up their time, God, to just bless us and our lives and to honour you, God. I pray that we're all willing to have these honest conversations that we need to have. I pray that we can take that step, God, and just move forward and not be scared, but just be truthful with our feelings, God, and be honest with the other people and try and get where they're coming from also, God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I just want to remind you all about Youth Camp one more time. Sign up for that. The link's going to be in the comments. I hope that you all sign up. And next week, we're back. We're in the building. 10:30 it all kicks off. 9:30 if you want to be there for praise and worship. And 10 o'clock, just drinks and hang out. So I encourage you all to see you next week. Have a blessed week. Love you all. Thank you very much.